Yo guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. So I've just jumped on this morning to do my weekly forecast, and this weekly forecast for the week commencing the 11th of April 2022. So before I do get started with the forecast, I would just draw your guys' attention to the written version of this forecast, which can be found linked in the description. And if you guys do want to read through the written version, then all my forecasts that I'm going to be speaking about have already been prepared in this written version. And guys, if you are grateful for this content, then please do subscribe to the channel because I'll be super grateful for that. Alright, so let's just jump into it. So going first would be Nzdusd. So Nzdusd this week, what we basically had is the most recent break structure on the daily was bullish. That left behind this order block that I spoke about last week, and that's also got imbalance above it. Now, at this point, what's happened is we've basically rejected the weak highs up here on the daily and started to reverse and come back down into this whole range here between this low and this high here. So at this point, due to the imbalance here, and because this candle here was the origin of that whole move, for me, this candle's the order block where the institutions have basically caused the price to go up from. So most likely, this is where the institutional demand will be in the market right now. So based on that, I'm going to be looking to buy out of here this week, and I'll be waiting for price to come down into this area, and then we can look to buy out of there when we see that structural transition, maybe on the 15-minute or the 1 hour. And that's NU this week. Pretty simple, really. It's just basically counter trend down until we get there. And yeah, we're not even 100 pips away now, so I'm probably not going to be too interested in taking the intraday sells, but I will see what happens with the hourly structures on Monday. Alright, so moving on to AU now. So AU, we were breaking structure to the high, so we've had them 3 consecutive breaks to the high, so we know based on that overall the daily structure's in a bullish trend, and we've got that overall bullish bias on the daily. So within this whole bullish situation that's going on from here to here, we've basically got this order block here, which caused the break of structure before the most recent bullish break. Now, within that, what we've also got is that this order block mitigated this order block, so that's how we've got a mitigation here, and that's why we've got our order flow invalidation there. So for me on AU, in terms of following this whole bullish situation, I'm going to be waiting until price gets down into there on the daily, and then we can look for those longer term buys coming out of that area to then take us into new highs on the daily. So in terms of the bullish situation, that's what I'm seeing on AU, and if we do get down there sometime soon, then I will definitely be looking for that structural transition on the lower time frames so that I can then look for buys. Now, what we can see though in the short term, we've got this break of structure to the low, so this is the bearish break of structure. So in this context, what that's basically signaling to me is that we've got our bearish intent, and we're going to start to now see this bearish move coming in, which will take us down into this order block. So based on that break of structure, we have got this order block up here, which caused it. So what we could see is the move up into there before we then sell off, and then that'll bring us down to then buy up from this area here. So on AU this week, really, I am going to be looking for these sells, and we can see if that materializes or not. Now, what I'm also aware of is that this, this break of structure here can just be a liquidity grab below here. So if we do start to see a full transition on the 1 hour, on the 4 hour, if we start to see that bullish structural transition, then I'll be happy to follow that and just continue buying, following all this momentum that's been in the market. But because we had that break of structure, I will be expecting that after a retracement up here, we will see themselves coming into the market. And I do think that it makes sense if the sells take us down here to mitigate this unmitigated order block, filling all this imbalance and maintaining the bullish order flow. So that's AU for me this week. Alright, so moving on to GU. So GU, the daily breaks are still the same as I spoke about in the previous weeks. So overall we were in this bearish trend, and we still are in an overall bearish trend. Now within that we've got this order block which directly caused this break, and then we've also got the order block up here which was the extreme of the whole range there. So for me, both of these areas are still very good areas to be selling from, pretty much premium areas to be selling from. So if we do get up there, then I will be looking for that lower time frame structural transition, and then we can sell out of there. But to be fair, that's probably not going to happen this week, so let's focus on this structure down here. So with this structure down here, we've had a bullish break, so that basically shows us our bullish intent. And based on that, for me, I think that we'll start to buy away from this area down here. So just based on the daily time frame, what makes sense now? We've wicked below here, grabbing liquidity from below, mitigating this order block. And at this point now, I think it makes sense that we're going to see a bullish move to then take us up into these high time frame order blocks. So looking from a daily perspective, next week I'm forecasting bulls to take us up to here, and then we can see what happens. Now, that said, however, the 4 hour is what's going on right now, so we have to take the 4 hour into account. And for me, I won't be taking any buys on this pair until I see this strong high on the 4 hour broken, because as of right now, we are just in a bearish structure and bearish order flow on the 4 hour. So, and for all I know, we will be continuing in that bearish structure. So within the 4 hour, what we've basically had is a break of structure there. So that break of structure to the low has left behind this strong high, which actually is where the order block is that caused the break. So what I'm anticipating just based on the 4 hour is price is going to come back up into this area where the strong high is, and then it'll sell off out of there. So I will be keeping an open mind, and I'll be happy to take that if it does come off on the 15-minute to the 1 hour time frames. But like I said, based on the daily, we've got this order block here. It's now been mitigated and LG'd. So what I will anticipate is that we may just get price breaking this strong high to then come up and mitigate these daily order blocks. So start of next week, the first thing to be watching is the reaction out of here, and then there's nothing wrong with selling following that reaction if we do get that reaction. Failing that, if we do break the strong high, then absolutely looking for them buys makes sense, because we've got two reasons with these order blocks for price to come higher. So looking for buys following a 4 hour transition, absolutely fine, and that's what I'll be doing on GU this week. Alright, so euro dollar. So euro dollar, we're still in a major sell bias on the daily just because of these two consecutive breaks of structure. So we know that we want to be favouring sells overall. Now, just like the last few weeks, in terms of where can we sell from in the daily range, well, the extreme of the daily range is up here. So, within this whole situation, it makes sense for price to come back up into these areas, and then we can look to sell off from there. Now, what we've also got still is this unmitigated order block here, which on the 6 hour is a clear order block with imbalance. And even though price did come near it, for me personally, for my refinement, it didn't actually mitigate. So it still makes sense for price to come back up to here before then selling off. So, looking at the daily and these higher time frames in the hourly, either coming up to here and then selling off to break the week low, or coming up to here, then selling off to break the week low makes sense to me, and I'll be happy with either of those situations. And also, if we do transition bullish, then we can look to buy up towards these areas, knowing that price has a reason to go there. Now, again, though, that said, what has happened is we've retraced correctively, and then all the bearish momentum start coming back into the market, the institutional sell orders. So, regardless of these order blocks up here, what we've got to focus on is what's happening right now on the 4 hour, and then just look to go from there, really. So right now on the 4 hour, what we've got a break of structure here. Now that break of structure originated from this high here, and then at the minute we've got this low down here. So because the break structure is bearish, that's why we've got a strong high, and it leaves as well this weak low. So just based on this range alone, what I'm expecting is for price to come up into this area to mitigate the order block next to a strong high, and then after that mitigation, we will just see it break the week low again. And considering how close we actually are to the daily low, I would just expect that if this situation does play out, we probably won't be coming back up to here right now, and we will just see that bearish continuation on the daily. So going into the week on EU, the only thing I'm actually interested in is how is price going to react out of this area, and if we can see that bearish transition in this area, then I'll absolutely be very happy to take sells and then let price play out to the low. So that's it on EU this week. We're looking for sells following the 4-hour range, but if that does get broken to the high, then we know why. We've got two clear order blocks up here, and price has perfectly valid reasons to come back up here. So, if we do break that strong high, we don't need to panic. We can just wait and watch price and see if we do get them counter trend buys or not. But yeah, this week it is just going to be, for me, until we do see that break, I will just be looking for sales out of there. Alright, so pound yen now. So pound yen, we're clearly in a bullish bias. So what we've essentially got within this bullish bias, we've got the extreme order block down here. So in an ideal world, price comes all the way back down here before going up, breaking structure again. Now, obviously that's a very big move, nearly 1,000 pips to get back down there. So whether or not that's going to happen is really yet to be seen. So that's why I've also marked on this one, because we can see that there was that selling volume in these candles, and that was just before the break of structure. So for me, what we might get is price comes down into this area, then finds that institutional demand, which then supports it to continue going higher. So from a daily perspective, whilst I do think that this is the cleanest one, just based on the distance and based on the fact that we do have sell volume here, institutional sell volume, I wouldn't be surprised if price goes out of this one. So for me, ideally, we are going to see this bearish move down to take us into one of these two areas before we continue higher. Now, within that situation, what we've had this last week, we had a bearish break of structure on the 4-hour. So we basically had, that bearish intent to show us that we might be going lower now. And then what we're seeing now is prices retraced into this supply order block, which has actually caused a bearish break. And we are now essentially just waiting to see if we are going to get the bearish transition which we're expecting, or if it is just going to continue bullish with the overall daily trend that's been going on. So GJ this week, is interesting. For me, this is how I'm seeing it, and until we see that strong high broken, I will be expecting sells, because I do think we have reason to come lower. And yeah, I do think it makes sense that if they've done the break of structure of the institutions, then this is probably the time where they're gonna do this sell move so that they can mitigate these order blocks. So for me, that's GJ this week. Start of a week, I'll be watching the 1-hour, look for a break of structure on the 1-hour, coming away from the 4-hour break, and then we can look to follow that 1-hour structures for sales away from the 4-hour. Now, what I'm also aware of, we are just in a very bullish trend. So what this could also be is, literally just a pullback before we continue higher. That's a bit messy. But yeah, what it could be is, just a pullback before we continue higher. So I am aware of that as well. The way I analyze the markets, I do think we're going to see that sell off. But if we do see this strong high broken, then I'll absolutely be open to just continuing buys, because that's perfectly plausible. So that's GJ for me this week. Now, Euro Pound. So, Euro Pound, looking at the weekly, we're still within this whole downtrending situation. Now, what we've had on the weekly is this break of structure here. So, that left behind this strong high and this weak low. So, just based on the weekly on Euro Pound, I will be expecting sells to follow through to break this weak low. So, on the hourly timeframes, I'll be open to bearish opportunities, and then potentially we can just see this weak low broken next week. Now, just having a quick look, what we do have, what I can see is we've got this 2-hour order block here, and it's also the 4-hour and 1-hour order block. So, for me, in terms of the current situation with the bearish thesis, if we can hold this strong high here, then we can just look to trade away from it at the start of next week to then take us, further down and to break that weekly range. So In terms of looking for sells, I do think that this order block here and the respecting of this strong high is the ideal way to get involved in bearish price action at the minute on this pair. And that's what I will be looking at in terms of the sells, which I do think will happen because the weekly is the main structure that's happening at the minute. Now, that said, however, what I'm aware of is the 2-day structure. So on the 2-day, we've had 2 consecutive breaks of structure to the high. Now, obviously, the weekly is higher than the 2-day, so in theory, the weekly takes a higher priority and should be given more weighting. But that said, the 2-day is always going to transition to bulls before the weekly transitions to bulls. So when we see the transition on the 2-day, we've got to still keep an open mind that we could just start seeing bullish price action coming through now. So considering that and understanding that we had an order block here that caused this break of structure, that was then mitigated here, and then we had another break of structure. What we've now got clearly is a bullish order block in this area down here. And using the hourly time frames, I've refined it down to this point here. And as we can see, price did tap into it on Friday. So what I'll be expecting to be fair, is that we may just see that reaction continue from here. So really what's going to decide my plan for this week on Euro Pound is whether or not we're going to hold this strong high here. So if we can hold this strong high, then I'm bearish, and I'll be looking for bearish opportunities to take us into this weekly low. That said though, if we do break the strong high, then it makes sense because a transition to bulls out of this area here, which is the 2-day order block, makes perfect sense based on the footprint of the institutional demand. So for me, I will just be looking for buys if we do break this high, and if we don't break the high, then I'll be maintaining the weekly sell bias. So that's my plan for EG this week. Really depends on what happens with this level here. Alright guys, so I hope you got value out of this video. If you've got any comments about my delivery or about any of the analysis, then please do leave them because I love to hear feedback from you guys. So if you've got any comments, then just comment below. Also guys, if you're grateful for the video, then please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, because it does mean a lot to me and I do put time each week to make these videos. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a safe trading week and stick to your trading plans, and most importantly, stick to your risk management. Cheers guys.